Welcome to Barnacre. A proper definition of what Barnacre is eludes me. I can tell you where it is. Situated in the county of Lancashire in the northwest of England, it neighbours the villages of Cordovale, Bonds and Bowgrieve. These villages make up the civil parish of Barnacre with Bonds, which unmistakably joins the names Barnacre and Bonds. We already know Bonds is a village, so what does that make Barnacre? Despite living at an address that definitively stated that I lived in a place known as Barnacre, I was stumped by this conundrum. The answer I came up with, after at least 10 minutes mulling it over, is that Barnacre is the nebulous rural area that acts as connective tissue for those aforementioned villages. Some medieval bloke was likely tasked with drawing lines around the local settlements, and was then left with the vacuous space in between that now lacked definition. Barnacre, he surely proclaimed, the generic portmanteau that literally means acres of land for barns. And so it was that Barnacre would be nothing more than farmland. When a census was completed for Barnacre with Bonds in 2011, I would have been among the population of 2,148. Though if I were to hazard a guess at how many of those people actually lived in Barnacre itself, I can't imagine it's even breached 100. I wasn't aware that this census was taking place. Perhaps my father failed to mention it, or perhaps I was too busy becoming the best Yu-Gi-Oh player at my primary school, or trying to comprehend what was going on in Boom Street. While I now understand what a boom is in a financial context, as a young lad, I was baffled that the game was named this way in Europe, while the Yanks were granted the far superior Fortune Street. We know what fortune is in England, at least I do, and I did at the time. I didn't know what a boom was. I didn't even know that a census was taking place, or that they took place every 20 years, at least with Barnacre and Bonds. That's something even you know now, and you didn't even live here for a majority of your life up to this point. I never really meshed well with the Barnacre lifestyle. You may be able to ascertain from the pointless prose and pedantic ponderings prior to this paragraph that I might not make perfect farmer material, which potentially props up my present-day passion for farming games as all the more peculiar. It's undeniably not just me, though. Take, for example, Nintendo Directs. You'd be hard-pressed to watch for more than a few minutes without some cozy game about a customizable avatar who inherited a farm from a recently deceased paternal figure stealing the spotlight. Depending on who you ask, these games are either an irritating regularity or someone's next 300-hour obsession. Farming is hardly a glamorous occupation, so how did we get here?
Most people would accredit the label of the first farming game to Bokujo Monogatari, which we in the Western world would come to know as Harvest Moon. Various Reddit users object to this notion, instead pointing to the United States Sim Farm and Turkey's Umut Talalero as earlier examples of the genre, both releasing 3 years earlier in 1993. While these are games in which you farm, they aren't too comparable to what we're discussing here. There's a major distinction between the type of experience you'd get in a Farming Simulator 25 and a Stardew Valley. The former aims to earnestly simulate the reality of farming down to the most granular details, while the latter instead offers players the fantasy of farming, building an idyllic rural life around this simplified role. Going forward, when I refer to farming games, I will be exclusively referencing these farming fantasies. So if you came here hoping I weigh up the pros and cons of the John Deere 8R series, I fear your YouTube recommendations have led you astray. Despite releasing on the Super Nintendo after the release of the Nintendo 64, the original Harvest Moon was a modest success. There was evidently an appetite for agricultural RPGs, so the developers would quickly shift into the production of another entry, and another entry, and another entry, and a few spin-offs, more entries, then a dispute with the localizers of the series over the rights to the IP, which ultimately resulted in the original Japanese title being translated a tad more literally to bring us to the modern day Story of Seasons series. Harvest Moon still persists, though the quality of these newer titles has arguably plummeted due to the fracturing circumstances. A once miniature seed sprouted into a gargantuan tree, its many branches providing fruits of varying value. and those fruits would contain seeds of their own, which people would sow onto their personal fields. There are a number of traits you'd expect to see in most modern farming games. The first, obviously, is farming. Till your field, plant some seeds, water them, and after a few days, pluck your crops out of the ground and sell them for a tiny profit. This operation blossoms as you expand your range of crops and take on the care of various farm animals, selling their produce too. You'll often have to consider the season when deciding which vegetables to grow. Maybe you'll have to utilise fertiliser to ensure your goods are of a high value. Perhaps you'll be able to shirk some responsibilities as the rain pours down and you hang up the watering can prematurely. It's the ancillary objectives that set these titles apart from the farming simulations we touched on prior. You explore a bustling rural town, build relationships with the people living there, and direct your life in just about any way you see fit. While Harvest Moon established these sturdy foundations, it was 2016's Stardew Valley that took the genre to soaring heights, both in regards to merit and popularity. The beloved formula was adopted and polished, layering multitudes of systems into an already enticing package. An ever-expanding countryside, a litany of diverse romantic partners, comprehensive combat mechanics, and so much more was wrapped into a neat pixel art package which promised post-launch support that hasn't ceased to this day, which goes without mentioning its replayability, owed to a sandbox-esque approach, allowing any player to tailor their farm to their minute specifications. I've tried to get into Stardew Valley numerous times, back when the game first released, again on my Nintendo Switch, again with some updates, again with my fiancée, yet I've only breached a single in-game year in any individual playthrough, meaning I've interacted with just a fraction of the game's total content. My interest always begins to wane, and the threshold where my enjoyment ceases seems to creep earlier and earlier into each subsequent revisit. There are many things to accomplish during your time in Stardew Valley, but no definitive endpoint. There certainly isn't a green moon. As we all well know, I hope, the moon isn't green. Our moon isn't, at the very least, and if you're watching this on Mars hundreds of years from now, I'm talking about Earth's moon. The green moon I'm referring to looms overhead in the aptly titled Before the Green Moon. This verdant adventure by the two-person strong Turnfollow had humble beginnings within my brain. It wasn't a bombastic reveal trailer or an enthusiastic recommendation from a loyal friend. It was a couple of screenshots and a few messages sent in the Happy Shabby Games Discord server. Unfortunately, I've hit my quota for mentioning things related to Love to Lick in this video, so to find out more about Happy Shabby Games, please see my video about 24 Killers. Anywho, the message from Discord user Shu Bi reads as follows.
Been trying to clear through the games I got from the Games for Gaza bundle, and Before the Green Moon was in it. It's labelled as a farming sim, but the farming isn't really a huge part of the game. Just a chore you do in the morning before spending the rest of the day running around town. Also really doesn't hold your hand. Just tells you where your basic farming stuff is located, and how you get closer to the NPCs? Up to you to figure out. You never really know why a certain cutscene triggers. It just feels like you are at the right time, right place, which I think makes it more immersive. It's aimless, but I don't feel lost, you know? It never reached a point for me where I felt like I was struggling to discover some mechanic or cutscene.
The combination of this drenched screenshot, evocative commentary, and predisposition to trusting users from this particular Discord when it came to recommendations, I found that the game had already materialised in my Steam library, my brain foggy and my wallet bare. Initially, I had my Steam Deck hooked up to the living room TV, prepared to lounge about while basking in Before the Green Moon's moist atmosphere. However, following an enticing introduction to the game's world on the back of, and I'm being generous here, a bus, it was evident that this journey could very well stick to me like a wet paper towel to an unsuspecting office worker's shoe. I reluctantly tore each finger from the controller, opting to sit down with this at my computer, video recording software at the ready. At that moment, I could never have known what awaited me on this expedition to reach the Green Moon. We soon arrive at a settlement within Goria, which again has me questioning the definition of a place name. I refuse to get bogged down in this again. No one here gives it to you straight, evidenced by Carol's meandering welcome tour. A seemingly older gentleman, Carol acts as your tutorial, bringing you up to speed on your new home's amenities. It's imperative I establish another key figure in this story, the player character. Before you even gain control of this figure, they have a history in this world, having lived numerous years that has shaped a personality you can only lightly influence. His name is Bayou, a ready-made moniker that stuck out to me among other swampy nouns. Bayou's history remains somewhat obscured. though we know for certain he was part of a group known as the Youth Farmers, a group he seemed to have joined after a couple of people close to him left or passed on. While working with the Youth Farmers, someone from the moon, yes, the Green Moon, came to visit, giving those from this marsh an opportunity to integrate into something far grander than anything they could currently conceive of. According to Bayou, they brought 30 musicians who played as one, all of their strange instruments immaculate. Visions of a vibrant existence, far different, far superior than his own, would surely stir within his limited scope of understanding. I speak from experience. I felt the same pull to leave Barnacre, to reach the Green Moon. In essence, Bayou's time at this settlement acts as an essential stopgap prior to making his way beyond the clouds. An imposing elevator towers above. As we'll find out later, this is just the first leg of many required to make our way to the moon. A ticket to board can be acquired by shelling out a daunting 110,000 Mooney, which is the digital currency here. This isn't going to be an easy task, and it certainly won't be a quick one, so we might as well get to know the other residents. There's the aforementioned Carol, who works as some sort of administrator at the settlement, facilitating our stay at this dishevelled farm. While very knowledgeable, he's also seemingly a touch aloof, taking some time to recall information at various intervals. Then there's Pony, an awkward young lady who struggles to hold her tongue, as well as Elvis, the local chef who runs a modest canteen to keep everyone fed. Next up are Marie and Marshall, an aging couple who live by the beach. Marie appears to be somewhat antisocial compared to the comparatively boisterous Marshall. Finally, there's the elusive Int. They spend their time cooped up away from the noisy streets, living alone in a house that feels too big for them. They are strange. It isn't long before we're knee-deep in our piddling patch of dirt. Each day, a batch of generic seeds are delivered by our faceless employer. This is a job, after all. Much like any new job, this is a trifling endeavour, allowing you ample time to familiarise yourself with your new home base. Too much time. If it isn't apparent from what you're watching, there really isn't much to do in Before the Green Moon. You'll wander aimlessly around town, occasionally triggering a new cutscene, and even more occasionally discovering somewhere you haven't been before. On especially rare occasions, you'll even encounter chickens, which can be snatched up and sequestered back to your farm, subsisting solely on apples you find scrounging around the nearby forest. Pony named this one Zoe.
If you've ever been a kid before, you might find this relatable. Do you remember your summer holidays? Weeks away from school where you could do anything. Maybe there were odd bits and bobs that your parents asked you to do, but beyond that you were free to whittle away the days however you pleased. Isolated from the world in that farmhouse, I would often position myself in front of the TV for hours on end, losing myself in worlds that were far more fantastical than my own. Despite vast fields that seemed to stretch on forever at my doorstep, I felt trapped in my youth, trapped in that small body, unable to make my own decisions. Trapped in school, forced to work hard in subjects I never wanted to learn. Trapped in this rural paradise where I didn't belong.
There were some things to appreciate about my agrarian upbringing, and likewise there are many endearing aspects to this soggy settlement. While the aesthetics may not be traditionally appealing, Before the Green Moon succeeds in capturing a sopping wet climate. Its plasticky models glisten as if perpetually damp. Fabrics and plants alike rustle in the constant breeze, and each texture is imbued with a layer of grime that implies that this place is anything but paradise. These imperfections are reflected in just about every aspect of the experience. The game, too, is incredibly tactile, immersing you in its alternative reality. The camera sways around haphazardly, almost as if it can't quite keep up with the player. Sounds seep into different scenes, and the game is particularly effective at simulating the patter of rain against various distinct surfaces. Your inventory is tiny, so you'll need to start cramming your crops into a bucket, adding yet another hurdle to your simple farming life. Mixed emotions are aplenty, and you'll be privy to this fact the moment you start the game. The title screen plays a tune that I have a hard time interpreting. I originally had this down as being played in the minor key, but after a consultation with a musically inclined pal, that doesn't seem to be the case. I won't pretend to truly understand everything in this message, but they also believe this to be in a minor key at first, which further illustrates the dissonance this track conveys. It's vaguely nostalgic, reminding you of better times, but it also dredges up those memories you'd rather leave buried. The tone of this piece serves as a potent microcosm for the entire experience. Faced with tireless labour and terrible weather conditions, who wouldn't yearn to escape? Thankfully, an escape route does exist. We just need to purchase a ticket. After a few days here, I was resolved to focus up and get some farming done. And so, a routine was produced. I'd wake up, tend to my farm, wander up to the canteen to refill my stamina, and dedicate the rest of my day to wandering around town. Maybe stopping by the forest to collect apples, perhaps heading down to the water to catch some fish, or potentially plugging away at the rocks in the sewers to uncover the secrets that lay within. Like swimming out to sea and suddenly realising you could no longer touch the ground, I hadn't noticed that I'd been suckered into this world. Characters no longer felt like NPCs. They were my neighbours, all with their own lives that didn't depend on my own. Each day, I'd learned something new about every person I spoke to, and I was naturally gravitating towards the same people over and over. I built bonds instinctively, and the game rewarded that behaviour with more events. While the farming genre was founded on, well, farming, I'd argue its social aspects acted as a stronger hook to many potential fans. Stardew Valley proudly catalogues its entire population within its pause menu, the very first quest tasking you with meeting each and every one. Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life is far more brazen about introducing its cast, lining them all up like the end of a stage play as they emote towards the player, who becomes the centre of their world. You never get the sense that there's actually anything going on within these characters' heads. Day in and out, you'll read dialogue that could be written for just about anyone, with the same banal conversation topics popping up over and over again.
Everyone seems to get so much happier in the spring.
Spring always makes me remember coming here with Gallon.
Running is great in the spring.
The weather's nice, isn't it?
I love this weather. It makes me feel so good.
I feel great today. How about you, my friend?
Even the very first Harvest Moon game featured numerous townspeople you can interact with, including 5 bachelorettes that the affable Pete could court. And it was practically the industry standard from then on for any farming game to feature some sort of relationship feature, typically ending in a marriage and often children, too. The genre romanticizes the platonic ideal of a man settling down after a laborious day of work to his wife's home cooking and his son's bright smile. This is a little facetious of me to state, as some strides have been taken to overcome the antiquated gender roles at play in the genre's earlier entries. Sister games will be released for some titles, featuring quality of life updates and a female protagonist, and most modern titles will simply allow you to choose your pronouns during character creation. However, the transactional elements of these relationships are the thing I really want to hone in on. The most efficient way to enhance bonds in Stardew Valley is through the act of gift giving. Each friendship you have is represented by a number of hearts in the pause menu, and each character can receive up to 2 gifts per week. You're encouraged to overwhelm these characters with objects they desire, despite how unrealistic of a method that is to get someone to like you. Love then becomes just another stat to keep track of, though this is less egregious than A Wonderful Life's implementation. To progress beyond the first year, you must get engaged to one of the game's 3 bachelorettes, which I wasn't able to do during this time period. I barely found myself wanting to interact with these wooden characters, so when the time came and I had one of these girls rushing into my home, begging me to marry her, I declined and the game ended there. It's difficult to write compelling character relationships, romantic or otherwise, but Before the Green Moon seems to achieve this effortlessly. Friendship statuses are totally obfuscated, allowing you to nurture connections without a carrot on a stick to lead you along. Instead, you'll engage with these characters because you want to. Carol grew up long ago, at a time when war raged on. It's clear that he hasn't quite moved on from that period, still partaking in war games and gazing over at his replica rifle with some fondness. While it's unclear whether or not he was ever at war himself, it's reasonable to believe he was, owing to his calm demeanour when he learns of the death of someone he was close to. I also suspect that his mental faculties are beginning to falter, as he relies on technology to bolster his memory. Older characters are scarcely depicted in the early stages of cognitive deterioration, so there's an uncanny melancholy that underscores each of his interactions. Int lives in a secluded area behind the settlement streets. As such, actively deciding to visit them requires some planning, as you're unlikely to be wandering around this area regularly. Thus, we barely spoke, and they gave me very little to latch onto initially. With negligible intervention, other characters would begin to mingle with Int more frequently, and Int would in turn leave their house more often. As they peeled away at Int's layers, I too became intrigued by what they were up to, and I found myself going out of my way to visit Int's abode almost daily. Int is undoubtedly autistic. They have a hard time opening up, speak very matter-of-factly, and are hyperfixated on their contraption. The fruits of that labour I refuse to reveal. As someone with autism, I see a lot of myself in it, and while they have an incredibly hard time showing it, it's clear that your presence in their life uplifts them. No one was more integral to my playthrough than Pony. I don't believe any of these characters make a remarkably compelling first impression, but this feels intentional. After all, you are just another traveller who sees their settlement as a stepping stone to reach loftier heights. Therefore, these early interactions don't attempt to endear you to these people, instead integrating you into their lives at a leisurely pace. Pony herself is a touch blunt, and plenty opinionated. She forced her way into my daily farming life in a manner that initially came off as brash, but eventually came to be a quirk that I appreciated. You don't notice the gradual rate at which crops grow, but when you take a step back and observe with retrospect, their growth becomes crystal clear. This slow burn was not only noticeable in my farm, but in this relationship as well. It felt all too natural to reciprocate when she asked for a kiss, where not so long ago I'd felt no particular fondness towards the character. It can be somewhat embarrassing to discuss mushy subject matter like this, but I have to admit that I'd struggle to recall many other fictional characters that I felt this kind of tender connection with. There comes a point where maintaining these bonds becomes a bit of a bother. While the first season induced daily heavy downpours that kept your crops quenched, it's only a matter of time until the dry season strips away this crutch. When the game starts out, you've got all the time in the world to explore the settlement, talk to its residents, and generally take it easy. Chatted with everyone you wanted to? Sounds like you've got time for fishing. Discovered another chicken? Add it to the flock. Just spend some time tomorrow foraging for apples and you'll keep them at ease for life. And so you find contentment in this relaxed routine. Life isn't so dull anymore. The sun sets, the green moon rises, over and over and over and over. Then the rain stops. You step outside. There's a brisk wind, but quiet besides. It's growing warm. Today isn't going to be another easy day. After tilling the soil and planting the new seeds, another daunting task presents itself. With watering can in hand, you give each individual crop some love. This is a novel stamina investment, draining you of energy at a time you were previously brimming, and sinking its teeth into your limited time spent awake. Frankly, this isn't as much of a commitment as I'm making it out to be, but this dry spell has only just begun. As the green moon comes and goes, dust blankets the landscape, giving this previously soaked settlement an arid feel. The sheen of models is substituted for a matte look, and trips down to the beach for water place you firmly in the shoes of Bayou as exhaustion creeps closer and closer. While manageable at first, it quickly became clear that the farm was buckling under the weight of my ambition to reach the green moon. Crops were strewn messily across the asymmetrical field, with rocks and twigs taking up semi-permanent residency as I no longer had the stamina, nor motivation, to clear them any longer. On many days, I'd spend the entire morning and afternoon performing mandatory tasks, tending to my crops, stocking up on water, and perhaps most tragically, trying to keep my chickens satiated. I wake up once again, tired, the dreary lighting doing its best to dim the fire that shone faintly in my heart. Thunder roared from afar, alerting me of its oncoming presence. A potentially grim tiding, but a welcome one in this parched settlement. Hours whittled away as I filled my crop bucket, but as I went to deposit the goods, I spotted Zoe wandering around, outside of her pen. Panicked, with the storm having already picked up, I scampered over, swept her away and ferried her into a desolate chicken coop, abandoned due to a lack of food. I'd struggled to procure enough apples to feed the 8 chickens that were living on my farm. Due to the desiccated environment, these fruits were now extremely uncommon, and I had to fork out a not insubstantial amount of cash to purchase them at a premium, and in limited supply. My hubris had been my downfall, cramming absolutely every hen I came across into a cramped coop, with little to no consideration being put into how sustainable this may be. And now, it was Zoe alone who remained, as I probed each nook of the forest for my lost children. A new chicken was soon located, and this would mark the dawn of a fresh mindset. As the evening rolled in, I was still toiling away at my farm. I'd worked myself to the bone, leaving precious little time for a social life. With naught else to consider while keeping my plants happy, I was able to perceive how this existence reflected my own, especially in regards to growing up. You know, I've actually been making YouTube videos for 16 years. This began with antiquated camcorder gameplay, before graduating into somehow lesser quality screen recordings,
I don't know what to talk about really.
before at last nabbing myself a capture card and a decent microphone that still couldn't make my voice any deeper.
Sit, stand. We can sit on chairs in this game.
I must have made over 100 videos spread over multiple channels in only a couple of years between 2014 and 2016, and it still astonishes me that I had all of that time. That's what neglecting your studies gets you, kids. I would eventually make a start on this channel, scripting a video about Downwell after being inspired by other essayists on the platform. I'd always loved writing and had learned a lot about editing while creating Let's Play videos, so this was a natural next step for me to take. It never made it to completion, and it'd be a while still before I launched the outdated Breath of the Wild video that would really kickstart the channel. I have a lot of regrets about how I spent my time growing up. With so much time to invest, I could have been developing skills that would assist me in finding work as a video editor, or even developing games, which has always been a lifelong dream. Working on things like these now is not just draining, it often feels like I've missed the boat. I'd spent my life waiting for the time that I would finally reach adulthood, when I finally reached the Green Moon. I hadn't stopped to consider, what's the view like from the Green Moon? With these thoughts hurtling around my head in the digital space, I halted my contributions to the ticket that would grant me access to the settlement's space elevator. That goal had morphed into a backdrop, as I took things easy and kept chipping away at life. Pony and I would often spend the night with one another. I'd sacrifice some time to help Elvis out around the mess. I'd check in on In to see how their contraption was coming along, and I'd always make time to chat to Marie en route to my favourite fishing spot, the spot that had caught my eye in Shu Bi's Discord post. A small, perhaps needless detail is that you can cut down small grass just about everywhere, and this was something I'd find myself doing when I had a moment to spare. If I was going to call this place home, I should treat it like one. I was growing content with this life, as it was. But with content came resent. While I'd manufactured a near flawless routine, it had come at the expense of spontaneity and change. Little differentiated one day from another, and even seasons blended together in a way I couldn't quite parse. The shift was imperceptible, but before I'd realised it, I was once again gazing towards that green moon, with its inviting, viridescent glow piercing the moody skies that bathed everything I'd ever known.
Ian Ensley, one of the game's developers, said something that really resonated with me when discussing the game's characters in an interview with Superjump magazine. He described them as people who weren't comfortable, still, in this incrementally better place. I feel as if my life has always progressed incrementally. Years can be trimmed down to moments that saw me taking steps to improve my quality of life, increase the amount of money I was making, and build deeper relationships with those around me. This incrementation is safe, it's reliable, but it leaves me so far from content. With a stable job and plenty of people around me I can rely on when things get dark, I often wonder why that is. I've worked as an accountant for over 3 years now, and I already want out, whereas others, such as my former manager, have spent their entire lives in those same roles, clearly at peace with their lot in life.
Here we are, reality reflected in fiction on a spotless mirror, and I have to ask myself, were I to be in this exact same scenario, a potential way out teasing me with its verdant allure, could I truly ignore it? Could I sacrifice the part of me that desires fresh experiences and settle for this predictable existence? Or would I yield, taking off into an uncertain future? Would I really give up everything I'd built, my farm, my friends, even Pony, for a chance at something better?
I think I've already made this choice before. I no longer live in Barnacre. I no longer live near Barnacre. After some tumultuous events during university, I made a decision. I gave up stability in the form of living with or around my parents to get a job in Manchester as an apprentice accountant, and it was a torturous couple of months. I'd get up at 6 AM to catch a bus, then I'd walk from that bus to the train station, then I'd catch a train, then I'd walk from that train station to my workplace, and I'd repeat this arduous 2-hour commute once more in the evening, getting home close to 8 PM, knackered both physically and emotionally. I live in Manchester now. I own a flat here. I've made it. Yet, I find myself only incrementally happier than before, ready to rip off my life jacket and dive headfirst into murky waters once again.
Before the Green Moon forced me to confront these uncomfortable truths about myself. This yearning for something more, something I can't quite put my finger on, but something I must keep chasing. So yeah, I did start depositing money into my account again. I had to knuckle down and finish what I'd started, and before long, that ticket was in my hands. A ticket I couldn't picture myself holding only a few weeks earlier. Never had I ever been so emotionally invested in a decision made within a video game. A testament to the power that fiction has over us, and to the game's superb, genuine character writing. My stomach churned as I went door to door, saying my bittersweet farewells. When I got around to Pony, I hesitated somewhat, with the game definitively confirming that this was it. This was goodbye. I was forced to recall similarly excruciating conversations with loved ones, painful admissions of guilt or uneasy topics to broach, and it went about as poorly as I could have expected. Embarking on the first leg of this journey, I was in a somber yet optimistic mood. I was ready to finally find out what awaited me on this Green Moon. Picturesque views, cheerful people, creative fulfillment. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was everything I'd been looking for. But a darker feeling kept nagging at me, discreetly. Perhaps this was a mistake to abandon a quote-unquote good life for unsteady ground that promised naught but a so-called brighter future. Surely I was an idiot for choosing this path. I had to try, though. If you don't try, you'll never succeed, and often trying requires failure. You can never know what's behind a door you refuse to open, and that fear of opening new doors can be paralyzing. I have more regrets from times where I didn't do anything than times where I at least tried to do something. We never do find out what the view is like from the Green Moon. We conclude as we began, with the Green Moon coming into view for the final time. And it doesn't matter what's on the Green Moon, because its mere presence in the sky had me asking so many questions that I was then required to answer. This is not a challenging game in a traditional sense, but it tested me in a fashion that I'd nary observed prior. For a time, this settlement, somewhere in Goria, had been my home, and leaving home is one of the most difficult things anyone can do.